are listening to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast about business, life, growth, children, and more. Today, I am over here on my own. Christina is out actually with the children. And the reason I'm on my own is because she has let me run free when it comes to conversations about artificial intelligence and what it's going to mean for business and marketing today and tomorrow. So I'm super excited. This is actually my first AI podcast that I'm doing, and I'm joined by Robert Mitchell. And I actually just met Robert here briefly before this podcast. We had a brief chat. So I don't actually know all that much about him. So I'm going to give him a good chance to introduce himself. But I do know he's from Virginia, and I do know he's been to Calgary. So, and I also do know that he knows a little bit about this topic of AI. So with that, Robert, why don't you give us a little introduction to yourself?
Oh, I won't brag about myself or talk about myself too much, but I'll just say I'm Robert. I'm working with WSI in the fractional chief AI officer role and developing programs for WSI on AI, and been in franchising for the last 21 years, working in technology and in development and all kinds of stuff. So that's the long and short of it.
Nice. I like it. So yeah, there's actually a lot there. So I'm going to unpack just a little bit of that, but certainly this one idea that's a pretty popular idea these days is the fractional CMO. And now you're talking about fractional AI, sort of consultant, I guess. I don't know what the exact title is. So can you tell me a little bit more about what that means and what that entitles?
Yeah, and honestly, it has a lot of overlap with CMO. So the fractional CMO is the same type of a concept where you're going into an organization. They don't have the bandwidth, the money to hire that person or the expertise to really develop a strong marketing plan, right? Mm-hmm. Well, AI came on the scene last year. Well, it's been on the scene for decades, but my point is when the language model, the large language model came on the scene, it kind of turned a lot of things on its head, and it made people kind of look up and say, well, what's this all about? So what this role is designed to do is it's a fractional role to go into an organization, assess where they're lacking so that the company can be future-proofed, right? So you're basically looking at the organization and saying, if I don't adapt these different channels, I'll lose revenue, I'll lose bandwidth, I'll lose employees, I'll lose efficiencies, I'll lose cost savings. These are all things that AI is bringing to the table on all these different verticals, all these different departments. And so agencies and companies are wondering, how do I implement AI? Well, it isn't a one-trick pony. You got to look at the organization. What an accountant does on a daily basis, what AI tool works for them is going to be completely different than what a salesperson or a developer or a marketer uses. Yeah. So, as a CMO or fractional CMO, you go in and basically talk to a few departments and their neat use cases and develop, an overarching plan for the brand voice, all that kind of stuff, right? Stuff that you already know about, right? Well, that same thing happens for AI. You're going to do every department. You're going to figure it out, and they're going to work together, right? Because the CMO is going to use AI tools. Yeah. So there's going to be overlap, I think. But right now we're strategizing and investigating and crafting the plan.
I love it. Well, thank you for the work you're doing, because obviously as a WSI certified agency partner for me, that means I get the benefit of people like you thinking deeply about these types of things, which is, just a great benefit of being part of WSI. So that's my little plug for the WSI Network, which I love very dearly. But I want to just take it sort of back a couple steps here and talk a little bit about what you've been seeing in terms of your experience with respect to, are people paying attention to this? I know you mentioned kind of the November 30th obviously was a big day in the world. And many people say the day everything changed. And, certainly we saw, adoption of ChatGPT was, very fast. But are people really, kind of paying attention to the extent that you think they need to be at this time?
Absolutely not. They are. I have people that I won't name any names, but I was talking to a global chief marketing officer, or not. I wasn't talking to them. My colleague was talking to them, and we're not going to do that AI stuff. We're going to be authentic, and we're going to be genuine, and we're going to go after this mentality. He lined up a few other terms relating to a strategy that did involve AI, and it was just basically a way to put your head in the sand in a different way. right? And I see that on one side of the equation, and people that are just don't get it or don't think it's really that impactful. And then you have these other people who are like this Chicken Little, the sky is falling, right? Which is the two ends of the spectrum. One's and nothing's happening, and one's like the world's coming to an end. And you know, you got people like Jeff Hinton, who quits Google and says, you know, stop AI, it's going to kill us all. I mean, I'm in the middle, somewhere in the middle of those two extremes. But I will say that the most important thing that anybody right now needs to be aware of, and just to calm everybody down, it's not too late.
Right.
It's not too late for you to be an expert. It's not too late for you to implement this in your organization. If you feel like you're in a role that's in the crosshairs, now there's a list of roles in the crosshairs that AI is supposed to be coming for. Everybody says it's okay. You can pivot, but you need to do it now. You need to become savvy on this technology, where you can use it, where you can implement it. Because here's the way I like to look at it. If you have 10 people in your department and they're all doing similar jobs in the marketing or whatever the role is at your company, and AI is able to make everybody 50% more efficient, well, half of you just lost your job, okay? Because supply and demand dictates that you can't immediately make the demand spike up just because you got more efficient. Right. So what I'm trying to say is, are you going to be one of those 5 that really took the bull by the horns and learned AI really well, and you're one of the 5 they keep because you're the best at implementing it? That's the question you have to ask yourself. So if you're an employee, go after it. If you're an entrepreneur, oh my gosh, you got such opportunity at your hands. You know, they're saying that this technology is going to spawn more entrepreneurs than any single technology ever, right? Because you can create a huge company with like 2 employees, right? So whatever task you felt you didn't have, or whatever agencies you had to hire to do things, you can do a lot of that with yourself, or more affordably, right? If you want to hire an agency to do some stuff, they're more efficient and they're less expensive. So all the things are going to be getting better.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'm quite optimistic actually about the technology and what it can do. And I actually think that, yes, I think there's probably some job losses coming, and there's probably some major disruptions happening across many different industries and different sectors, but overall I think the net positive for humanity will be there. And I think as a business owner, I'm thinking about, okay, well, in the short term, first of all, one, yes, it's going to make us more efficient, but at the same time, and I just literally presented this to my staff an hour ago, saying we're going to become more efficient, but we're also going to be spending a heck of a lot of time trying to figure out new tools and what works, and developing new systems and new processes. And so, it's going to be sort of, our work is going to be shifted to different work. It's not like it's just like the work's going to go away. And I think especially in the short term, there's just this explosion of tools, and the big tech companies are getting in there. And so it's going to be sort of a hard to navigate space for a little while. So, given that, do you have any kind of advice for entrepreneurs on how to navigate that?
It's so funny. I got to comment what you said. So you're exactly right. It's like, I'm more efficient now, but I'm also much busier now, ironically, because I have to learn everything. You have to absorb and get the content. So I might be able to write a blog post in 2 seconds now, but I got to learn all these other things that I didn't know existed in the tools. And so, I get it. So advice for entrepreneurs is, I always use this analogy. I used to be a professional ballroom dancer, so I used to teach ballroom dancing to people, right? And the very first day on the job, I was freaking out. The week later, I got my first client where I had to teach them dance, right? A week into it, I got a client. And my boss says, don't worry, we're going to teach you what you need to teach for that lesson. And an hour before that, I learned what I needed to teach them, and then I taught them. And then the next lesson, I learned again an hour before. So my point is, I always knew more than they did.
Right.
Okay. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're in this space, you don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be Elon Musk. You just need to know a little bit more than the client.
Yeah.
And that takes just a little bit more effort. They don't have time. Your clients don't have time. They're dealing with their 4 walls, supply chain issues, all kinds of other things that are related to their business metrics, right? So you as an entrepreneur, you have to take the time to be value added. And so you just get a little bit smarter on this topic and then bring that value added to your client.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think, now more than ever, I'm a huge fan of continuous learning and never stop learning and sort of absorb information and content. And, now more than ever, right? Now is the time to really lean in and sort of double down on learning everywhere you can. And I think, I mean, so similar advice, I guess, is advice to marketing professionals. I say same kind of thing.
Yeah, for marketing professionals, they're going to have to learn the new paradigm. As if you've learned from Google this week, they've thankfully, I guess, for just some people's relief, made sure that the paid search model is still around. There's still a way to play in that game. It's going to change, meaning that instead of just having a paid link, blue links, they're going to have a chat related, and that chat is going to give solutions to your query, right? Your language model query. So if you're asking for what's the best OLED TV, it's going to pull that from both the internet search that it had before, also the corpus of products in its database, also the paid search. So you're going to still be able to play in that, but yeah, you got to be ready to understand the new paradigm shift. Yeah. It's not going to be the old method of paid search. So all the marketers out there, make sure you're watching these updates, make sure you're getting on board and coming to your clients and saying, don't worry, we're shifting to this new method. We're going to have to do more LLM optimization, right? As opposed to search engine optimization. So we're going to modify our websites and the content we're putting out there so it is maximized by the language models.
Yeah.
Don't know what that looks like yet. That's still a moving target, but be ready for how to adapt that. Because let me tell you right now, Peter, Google will not lose their huge billions and billions of dollars of revenue or cash flow that they're generating from their business model. They got a solution to this, or they're going to come up with one. They cannot afford it, and their investors will not let them. Not come up with a new plan.
Yeah, so. I agree. They're not going to just lay down and die. That ain't going to happen. So obviously ChatGPT or OpenAI got in front of everybody a little bit and put everybody on their heels. But these are big, smart companies with a lot of really intelligent people working for them. And so, I think these models will shift. I mean, I think one thing that's going to shift, and as we talked about in our pre-conversation, we do a lot of work in tourism marketing, specifically destination marketing organizations. And I think this is just my prediction that the importance of brand is going to be is strong. I actually think we're going to see a lot of a resurgence of old tactics like PR, brand development, community, human to human kind of contact. So, is that? Are you seeing the world in the same kind of way as me?
Well, it's funny you say that because I heard this one smart person, I forgot who it was, the advent of the podcast, the long form interview that came out recently in the last 10, 15 years was because, that was a 1920s thing, the long form, interview. And so that was an old technology that was renewed. I think postcards are coming back. I think there's a print, which I've used and other companies have been a part of. I think that one might be the way to go about it, because my email box has got hundreds of unopened emails and I'll never look at them. But my mailbox at the corner, if I get a nice, pretty brochure, I'm telling you, old analog methods might be the new resurgence. Who knows?
I think so. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, if I'm giving advice to brands right now, my advice is really focus on building your brand and building your brand in the mind of the consumer. However you do that, right? That, like you said, there's all kinds of methods and tactics to do that. And when it comes to, Google search, I mean, I think, again, I'd be curious to get your advice on this, but, branded search might be more important than ever before, because I think if people are going to, a ChatGPT or other tool like that to sort of do their initial research on something, you'll want to make sure that your brand name is well known. People can kind of remember you and find you by your brand. And also tying your brand to certain keywords, I think would be an important thing to do, so that it's not just the keywords, but potentially tying the two together for the large language models, so that there's some association. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think so. I was trying to remember the guy's name. I was just listening to a presentation by him. He's the Marketing Singularity. Anyway, I was listening to him. He said almost the exact same thing. Maybe you watched it as well, but increasing the channels that you use in your company that aren't owned by anybody else or don't have AI in the mix of it, right? Yeah. So creating a newsletter, creating a text message group, creating a Discord channel, creating a Slack channel, ways that you can better harvest that community of brand loyalists to you and fans of your brand. ways you can curate that group, right? And that you can have better control over. So that might be the better way of going at it. And using Google to do that is going to be difficult moving forward. So you have to figure out more creative ways. Analog was what I was thinking, but to build your brand. So to your point, Peter, yes, building your brand is going to be key.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I mean, we actually have a product here at CIPR that we kind of sort of, we call it building your community of champions. And I think that's sort of exactly what companies, tourism or not, any company now is going to think about. Who's my community of champions? How do we build and engage that community of champions? How do we create real personal connections with those people, right? So, again, maybe our time will be saved on a whole bunch of administrative tasks and things in front of a computer, but maybe we're going to be spending more time face-to-face with people now, interacting with them more, and that'll be more desired. And I actually think that's a good thing. I think there's some positivity that can come out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree.
So how about on the caution side? Are there any kind of things that you're seeing that are, things that people should be cautious about, especially as I'm thinking about a CEO or, somebody, an entrepreneur or business owner, should there be things they're thinking about with respect to, you should know this or be cautious about that when you're thinking about implementing these tools?
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. There's some things that this technology is going to make redundant. Okay. Just like, I don't know, the maker of plows, and I can't think of a good example, but whoever was doing something that a new technology took over, they had to find something else to do. Right. So what I'd like to say to those people is get ahead of it. Again, you want to get ahead of where consumers might be doing something that makes you redundant from the retail level, consumer level. Yeah. Right. So, the cautionary tale with any new technology is to be ahead of it and to find a way to adapt your models before the market adapts it for you. Yeah. Like Chegg came out recently, like saying, "Oh gosh, Chegg was a company that provided online learning, I think it was.
Okay.
And summarizations of stuff. I can't remember, but basically my point was they basically put their hands up and made a press release saying, AI is killing our business, and their stock plummeted. Like, you don't do that. You find a way to fix it and say, we fixed how we were going to be hit by AI, but we found a way around it. So do that first.
Yeah. Solution. Yeah. And I kind of tell you, I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of companies making a lot of mistakes, but my advice is fail fast, learn quickly, adapt, right? It's all about, this is now we're in this period of, quick adaption and sort of quick adoption, right? And so, a couple of things, I'm interested in, I actually listened to a podcast the other day about this, and they were talking about, and this is in the United States, I haven't looked at this in Canada yet, but apparently, content written by AI, for example, isn't necessarily subject to copyright protection, and there's some intellectual property questions and things like that. Have you been kind of engaging on any of those kinds of conversations?
So there's two different topics on there. There's one, intellectual property, and there's one, copyright, right? So with regard to copyright, the jury's still out. The U.S. Copyright Office has put some initial thoughts out there. They're kind of having some forums and getting some feedback and whatnot. And I read up something on the UK's position on it. So the UK has some language that specifically talks to computer-generated works, they called it, which was out for many years before AI. They had that language in for different software tools that were generating content, right? And I love this terminology. So this is what they use. The author, for copyright ownership purposes, is the person by whom the arrangements necessary for the creation of the work were undertaken. So what that basically means is, if I'm the brilliant prompt creator and I create this lovely work through Midjourney or through ChatGPT, I should be given some of the copyright license. That's kind of the language I'm hoping that they might be using for the future of copyright, but it's still up in the air.
Yeah.
IP is another issue. Intellectual property is more about, am I able to claim intellectual property on works that I use AI for? So I'm in the franchise world, so I'm cautioning people left and right as a franchisor. If you're trying to create an operations manuals and then you're going to use that as part of your core value proposition and you're going to trademark this, that, and the other, and anything that's created by AI will not be trademarkable, will not be able to be backed up by IP. If there was a robot involved in it, they're not going to like that. Now, that's a whole nother, those two issues are one thing, but if we're going to start talking about content and its acceptance, I think what we're going to find is all these concerns about, like Wired magazine, they did a big post about, we will not use AI in our content. That's a high horse that's not going to ride very long. That horse is going to be out to pasture in a very short period of time because people aren't going to care, Peter. They're going to want good content. They don't care where it comes from. Okay. So I think that there's lots of things to talk about what in the future of content acceptance, AI, IP.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you got it there. Yeah, no, it's to me, that's an interesting conversation, and I think one that people need to be talking about, and companies need to be talking about, and right, okay, who's producing what, and there's a lot of gray area. We're talking about this in my agency as well. It's like, okay, what if we wrote it and we use a tool to clean it up a little bit? Is that sort of, where does that fit? And right, so there's a lot of sort of thinking that needs to go around, and I think the number one thing I'd say around all of this is just spend time sitting down as a company, developing policies, developing principles, developing kind of what your approach is, being transparent about it, right? So again, as a marketing communications agency, if I'm creating content for my clients, I better be pretty upfront about my use of AI in the development of that content, and what the implications might be of that, and that type of thing, right? So
and as an outsourcer, as an agency, that's something I don't really have an opinion on because I'm using it personally. Like I wrote an article for LinkedIn. At the bottom of the article, I said, hey, by the way, LinkedIn wrote this. AI wrote this, and this is the prompt I used. But I waited till the end, not to do an I gotcha, but you know what? If you like this article, because I thought it was the whole reason I posted it is because I was having a problem with understanding some things about how AI worked, language models. I asked ChatGPT to explain it to me. I was like, okay, that's still not clear enough. Explain it more basic than that. Yeah. And I was like, man, this is very helpful. I'm going to post this. That's awesome. I posted it because it was helpful to me. I thought it'd be helpful to somebody else, right? Yeah. So that I felt like, that's a good reason. I could defend myself on that. What if somebody accused me of using AI? Now, as an agency, you just got to be upfront. You just got to say, look, we use this source to get us started. We modified it with our reinforcement learning with human feedback. Our agency employees edited it. We have editors because that's what you're going to do. Everything you do is edited. Totally. So at the end of the day, I think it's being transparent with your clients.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Yeah, and I think the other cautionary tale I'll just throw out there for people is again, just if people are really new to this and not understanding how it all works, is the fact that what you input into these tools also becomes part of the learning model and part of the public record. So if you have information that you don't necessarily want shared, or if you have stuff that you don't want out there that sort of you haven't sort of put out into the world yet, be cautious about that, or at least understand the fact that this stuff could get now this part of the learning model, and you may not want that, right? So again, I think it comes down to having some conversations, some policies, some how employees can use these tools, how can't they, what can go in there, what can't. So any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that early on, it was very obvious that some employees of large organizations are starting to use the language models with some proprietary information, and it was getting into the model. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if I used the model and requested it, if I would get it, I'm not sure if it works that quickly. Like if somebody at KFC said, here's my secret recipe for Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then you jumped in there, and I don't know if it works that fast, honestly. But the good news is that OpenAI has, at least that model, there's dozens, hundreds of different models out there now, but at least they have allowed or created a method for you to not have your inputs or your prompts included. So you can opt out of that now. So you have to have a paid version, I think, and whatnot. But so there's a workaround. But you're exactly right, Peter. Be careful what you're throwing in there, if it's proprietary or IP.
Yeah. I think especially early days, my kind of advice to everybody is, definitely go in, definitely get yourself educated, definitely get in front of this, definitely use the tools, do all the things. but just do it with some level of caution at the beginning, because really nobody really knows the answers to a lot of these questions, and nobody really knows how this is all going to kind of end up in certain ways, right? So just
and it's changing every day, right?
Yeah.
So every week I listen to probably 5 different podcasts on AI, and they're weekly podcasts. And it's funny is you're thinking that all 5 of them are going to have the same content, and they don't. It's like the big ones, Google this or Facebook that, but there's a lot of stuff that some don't cover. And so it's a change. It's very fast right now.
Yeah.
And so I'll give this analogy too, that back in the 20s when the cotton gin was invented or whatever, and it slowly took over, that the Industrial Revolution took over several jobs, right, in agrarian society. The analogy that people are using is that new technology makes jobs for the new people, right? It's like I always give this example from the Willy Wonka movie, where the guy, the new Willy Wonka, not the old one, where he loses his job at the factory, where his job was to put caps on the toothpaste. That was his job. Well, they got a machine to do it, so he lost his job. Oh, how sad. Well, then they hired him back to fix the machine that put the tops on. Oh, that's great. But they created a new job that wasn't there before. So that's really what people like to say about technology. Unfortunately, this is moving way faster than any of those other examples. Yeah. And the problem is people can't learn the new jobs fast enough to fill that void, which is one of the reasons why these people are saying, pause the AI, it's going too fast. And that's why there's this siren that you and I are on this podcast talking about. Educate yourself, get in the loop,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, hey, listen, Robert, I really appreciate your insights on this. You're obviously a guy that's on the leading edge of it all, and certainly I really appreciate the work you're doing at WSI to help our organization get sort of smarter at this. So, just thank you.
Yeah, 100%. I'm looking forward to it, and keep your eye open. The product's going to be amazing, and it's going to do well for lots of companies.
Fantastic. Awesome. So Robert Mitchell, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining in for another episode of Two Babies in a Business. CIPR Communications is a public relations and digital marketing firm partnering with clients across North America to reach their brand reputation and lead generation goals. Follow us on social at CIPR Comms and check out our website, ciprcommunications.com, for more information. If you have questions or want to be part of a future podcast, reach out at media@ciprcommunications.com. I'm James Falls, CIPR's PR specialist, and I'm looking forward to our next episode. Subscribe on your Spotify or iTunes account so you don't miss the next one.